Our events today somewhat are inspired and involved with a resolution that the local Evangelical Lutheran Church has passed, which is encouraging solidarity between within not only the local synod here, but also the Southern African Synod in Africa. And that mindset is important for what it is that we're trying to do here today. We are trying to do something in accompaniment with our LGBT friends in Southern Africa, and that's what this is all about. So making Chicago richer by working together with other people and moving together in accompaniment. We are sensitive to the imperialist histories that we have, and so I'd like us to keep that in mind as we go through our discussions and thoughts of how we move forward today. Judith is our first speaker. We'd like Judith to give us some information on her perspective and experience, as well as the research she knows of what is the environment in Africa right now that is targeting LGBTs in particular, and some of the motivations for why that scapegoating is occurring. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really a privilege for me and my colleague Ingrid to be with you this weekend. We flew in on Thursday and we'll be leaving on Monday again. So it's really a privilege, and it's the third year in a row that we've come to Chicago for a weekend to network and build relationship and get to know each other better and see how can we partner. Because how many of you have noticed that we are in a global village? Because even as we sit here, Victor says only 3 months ago he arrived in America. How would he know about America if it wasn't a global village? So it is really something that I want to start of what's happening in Africa is that we are in a global village. So Uganda cannot do what they are doing in the journey for the anti-homosexuality bill to go into law without the rest of the world noticing. Same in Nigeria. All the suffering and the really homophobia and the challenge to be an LGBTI person in Nigeria, that is not happening in isolation. Because here you can see for yourself, you can hear from each other, because we are more connected through the social media than ever before. And I think many of my brothers and sisters from the continent would know that 20 years ago, it was unimaginable that a cell phone exists. It was unimaginable what that little phone would open up for LGBTI people to come out of their isolation and access safe virtual spaces to get to know who am I, what is happening with me, if this is what I'm discovering about my sexuality, how can I share that where it's safe? And virtually, it has become safe. Many LGBTI people on the continent of Africa are linking via cell phones, via the internet. And that has opened a way for education, a way for encouragement, a way to find hope that has happened, where what has not happened is that the families and the elderly people and the leadership people in the churches, in the villages, in the towns, they're not in on that conversation. They're still with what is culturally a taboo, what is the myths about homosexuality is not African. They're still with the perceptions that doesn't get discussed. And then what happens? Because in Africa we see the hardening of the sodomy laws, anti-homosexuality laws, and that laws wasn't there from when they got in. It was out of the colonial era that those laws came into the books. It was never part of the culture to put in laws, don't do this, don't do that, and this must not happen, around sexuality and sexual expression. Now, pressure on the continent, because we're shrinking so much, pressure is now so easily seen as a new colonialism, as Western influences, and we know part of that is true, because you all know, and we've seen as we were yesterday on the TV show, I was with Brent, and one of the callers who phoned in, they said, the evangelical Christians coming from the conservative side of America, they've exported homophobia. There's a lot of money and energy that went into people from here going to Uganda and doing missionary work there. But it's not that simple that it's now only the conservative evangelicals now suddenly that are the ones responsible for so much hate getting into the law. It's not true. What is also true is that people are pressurized to take decisions now, and they haven't got the vocabulary to talk about, and then it is also the pressure for leadership and power plays that has it that politicians will suddenly now use the issue. But they're actually using the issue of homosexuality to draw attention away from the challenges of how do we run the country, how do we deal with corruption, how do we deal with the elite that's taking so much of the resources where the general population is suffering, and it's all over Africa that is happening. And now it just so happens that the issue of homosexuality is a very sensitive one. And not only in Africa is it a sensitive one. Because I'll tell you, we can just, as an average here, how many of you experience the topic of sexuality and sex as a very comfortable, easy topic around the table, in your families? It's like one regular one, like with sport, it is just one of that. No. Just put up your hand, even if you're deeply in the West. Yeah, okay, you're so, Eric, you're so, it's out of the ordinary. The most average, it doesn't mean if you from the West, the East, South. It is not a comfortable topic. Our sexuality as human beings, we've got a long journey to go still. To own up to it, to find the vocabulary that we have enough common ground so that when I want to engage with you around sexuality and my journey with sexuality and with spirituality and how the two meet, that you find it as something that you don't have to be scared about, but that you can learn and we can relate around it because we are all on that journey. So now, if I'm here to start to say what's happening in Africa, we have really a huge surge of homophobia. It's impacting on LGBTI people's lives. Because although in many of the African countries the sodomy laws were there, they didn't enforce it. Now it's different. In the last couple of years now, and especially now, it's even now, the pressure is not only Nigeria and Uganda, but you'll even find in Kenya, which was previously in some ways a safe, at least for the last 5 years, it was more safer to talk about there around the issue. Even there the pressure is now to show the West that you'll not be dominated into their agenda. Even in South Africa, we just had the elections. We've got the most liberal constitution in the world, safeguarding LGBTI people. And yet the lived reality on the ground in South Africa is your life is in danger, and especially if you're a black lesbian. Because people are, young men are finding themselves, justifying themselves that they can go and rape you to correct you, to help you see what is a real woman and what's a real man. And that a woman cannot love a woman and that be equal love. It's just not possible. So they go even as far as raping and justifying that. So even in South Africa, it is challenging because the gap between what we have law-wise and what's the lived reality in our communities, it's huge, the gap, not only between rich and poor, it is between what the law says and how we are protected in the field. But I want to finish up here and say, I wish it was simpler, that we could say, all right, you listen to us on the panel, and then you will clearly see how you can stand in solidarity from us and with us in solidarity coming from the African continent. And we need you to stand alongside us. But it's more complex because there's some of you, and you will know it, the sentiment maybe, and you've heard it, that say Americans must be very cautious to partner Africans, because it's so easy that Africans will perceive it, you're again doing a new colonialism. You're telling us how we must run our side. So some of you might say, it's not our fight, it is not we must be very sensitive. And then in some way, the fact that you're so cautious gives you permission to step to the side. Which I'm telling you, please, maybe in 20 years' time we had blissful ignorance, but in this global village, we don't have the luxury for us to stand on the side. The same is for us in South Africa. We might say, we have our law. It is protected. So why would we go into Africa? Because the rest of Africa see us in South Africa as too westernized. We're Africans, we go into Africa working, and then people will mistrust us and say, you're not really African. Does that give us permission to say, okay then, I don't need to go into journeying with you in your different countries if you so mistrust me and I didn't earn it. So let me step away and say, okay, if you know who you want to trust. We also don't have that luxury because trust is earned. And how will you learn to trust me, or how will we learn to trust if we don't journey together? So I'm please asking you, it's maybe a very simple answer. But the time in this global village to relate, it is becoming more and more important. And not relating to have a quick fix, relating for the long-term journey, because we're becoming more and more diverse. So around the journey around sexuality and sexual expression and how culture and tradition mingles with it, it is really a journey that needs time and needs commitment of people that will make it safe and earn trust by relating to understand better what really is struggling around this whole issue. So, will you start by standing in solidarity so that we can journey onwards? Will you do that? Thank you.
How many many of us are familiar with the comedy Coming to America? Okay. It's old. In the 80s, this movie was out, and I love it personally, not because I wanted to come to America, but because I had a crush on Eddie Murphy. Just a little piece of it. This was a conversation between Lisa and the prince. And Lisa looked at the prince, Akim, and asked, "So, why did you come here?" And Akim answered, "To find something special." Hey, hooray. And then Lisa responded, "It's a long way to travel." And Akim replied, "No journey is too great when one finds what he seeks." What did they come for? He was not pleased with the traditional wedding arranged for him. He was here looking for something. He came to America to look for something else, someone else. That was a motivation, and it was a great journey to be taken by a great prince with his own money. But we have many people, we have various reasons for coming to America as human beings. Some of you here, our ancestors, those of us who are black, came unwillingly. And when I read a history of slave trade in high school and apartheid and so on, to be frank, I never knew I would be standing here in the United States today, because I just felt, no, they need to keep their peace there and we'll keep Africa. But I'm here today. Our white ancestors came to America because they were looking for economic opportunity, because they were looking for freedom from the unnecessary bureaucracy of the British and the happenings in the Europe then. Now we've come to another age. Coming to America is not ending. Some people are here because they're looking for freedom. They're looking for safety. They're looking for security. They're looking for opportunity to assert themselves and live their life as God created them. I'm one of them. Even though I did not come because I wanted to be gay, I actually came because I wanted to be free from being gay. It's ridiculous, if you know what I mean by that. Yeah. But getting here, I discovered the contrary. But since I've come to self-acceptance, I have seen more and more people coming from different parts of the world, particularly from Africa, with heavy pain in their hearts. Just like our ancestors who came unwillingly, a good number of them found themselves here too, unwillingly. If I had a life back at home, I've heard that from some of them. I'm a lawyer, I'm an architect, I'm a doctor, I'm a nurse. They had life. I was a priest in Nigeria, and I was a fabulous one too. I'll give you, and what led to that is the new wave of anti-gay happenings going on there. A new age broadened people's awareness, and a typical and correct definition of homophobia arose from that awareness. Fear of what we have lived with, roped with the concept of colonialism. And you will ask all those who are so much serious about this, all those who hate this, you ask them questions. You travel to, they are the first to get on the plane when it comes to going to Europe, when it comes to coming to America for whatever reason. The facilities they couldn't provide at home for their own people, as government of different nations, they come here to enjoy it. And the money, the sweat of the people over there, also they come here to spend it. The new wave of anti-gay rhetorics and actions is pushing people out of Africa. Men, women. And the class affected most are the well-aware people, the skilled people. And that took my mind back to the time of slavery, too. When I look at it, the people being sold into the slavery weren't the old, dying people. They were the young bloods, the able bodies that was being thrown away. The same way this wave of anti-gay thing is happening with our people. I know LGBT asylum seekers from US to South Africa to different parts of Europe. And these, again, I repeat, were able-bodied men who would have contributed meaningfully to the home community who are being forced out. I give you an example of an African young entrepreneur who is still approaching his 30, and yet he made it back in his home country, not by being employed by the government, but by starting his own business and being very good at it. But his major fault was that this guy was gay. And with the anti-gay rhetoric and their actions, especially backed by the government, people locally are taking laws to their hands. They set up gay guys. They set up lesbians. I've heard stories of being beaten from Nigeria to Ghana, from Ghana to Kenya. And I've even had a very horrific story of a gay man who died, who got buried in Senegal, and who the villagers felt, oh no, we know he's gay. You can't bury him on a Muslim cemetery. They went and dug his body, dragged that across the street back to his father's house. It is horrible. It is uncalled for. Well, back to the young man. He was set up. The whole thing was a client forgot his or her laptop at his office, and in good faith called this person. You left your laptop. He said, oh, okay, I'll come and collect it. Well, we've closed for the day. Oh, where do you stay? Okay, I'll take it home. And then some people got to his door. They knocked. He has not been able to establish for me whether he felt the owner of the laptop is an accomplice in this setup or not. But his mind was like, oh, yeah, they were here to collect the laptop. So he went up, opened the door, and two guys came in with guns. Oh, yeah, we have American guns everywhere. Everywhere now. And then the drama started for him. They made him strip. They took his picture in a compromised position with one of the guys. And they told him if he reports to the police, it will be a problem for him. Of course, he reported to the police. And guess what followed? Those people he reported were arrested. They presented the pictures they've taken, and they were let go. Then guess the next step? He became the banker for the police. Extortion. Some of the local and grassroots homophobic behavior against LGBTI community in Africa come from real grassroots, not necessarily from the government. But because they have the backing of the government, it was easy to do. So those who wanted to extort him from the earlier on couldn't do it. Now the Nigerian police had a field day, and it was just too much for the young man. He traveled, went to South Africa, went to another place before he decided to, you know what, let me just go away to a very far place and later on come back. So he decided to come to America. He's not here to look for a wife. He did not even have the plan of asylum originally until everything went the other way through our immigration justice system. He found himself arrested again here in America. He was behind bar here in America. Even when the immigration established the fact that yes, and he made it clear to them what was driving him from home, he was still kept for some months before he was released. Where is the hiding place for the gay man? Where is the shelter, a safe home for an LGBTI person? Where, if he couldn't have a simple way to justice here in US? Each time I'm glad he's out now. You remember the other time I spoke about this during the inauguration of CLASP? It brought tears to my eyes, and at a point I just couldn't go on. But I'm glad he's out. But it is painful. And he's not the only one going through this. Well, how come he will find himself in such a position? It is because with this wave of hatred, homegrown, woven around the concept of colonialism, people need to find their way out. And he found himself in that position because there's no easy way out for an asylum seeker. No easy way out. You have to leave your home country to the safe country. It is when you get there, then you can apply. And I'm an American citizen now. Hey, hooray. I can go to England without applying for visa. But a Ugandan cannot go to England without applying for visa. A Nigerian wouldn't and cannot, even when his life is endangered. And if he should present the concept of, I need to go and seek asylum, it's not accepted. So how would one get out of in such a situation? I have different stories of how people got out. But I'm not going to table all those now. But it's like a house on fire. Forget your FUBU pant. Just jump out. If you are alive, you may be able to afford another one. But I bet you, jump out naked and people will clothe you instead of staying in the fire. He left Nigeria and he is here. He is no more in immigration detention, but he is here in US. He's still crawling to the point of, to the line of asylum seeking. But he is here in the US. He was a lucky man. Some have got killed in the process. Some are in jail. Some have killed themselves. It's not a strange thing to us in US for people to kill themselves because they are gay. Well, it gets better, and I believe that helped a lot. And there's a big reduction on that here. But it's happening over there. He is here. The law remains in place. In two countries where we have vicious anti-gay attacks, Nigeria and then Uganda. But all other places where, because in these two countries, Uganda, because the activists there are really active and they are talking. Nigeria, because it's a very popular country, the most populous in matter of head counts in Africa, with a very big economy, so the world cannot but notice what is going on there. But what of somewhere like Togo? What of Malawi? What of Congo? I had an activist who ran away from Congo, Said Joseph, and ran to Uganda when his life was in danger. What do you call that? Jumping from frying pan straight to fire. And he's still in Uganda. He's been arrested, he's been beaten in Uganda. For what? For being gay. That is part of what is happening. But people all over the world, as I said earlier on, if your house is on fire, forget your FUBU pant, jump out and shed. People will clothe you. We thank God there are people here and there, not only in the United States of America, but overseas, in South Africa and other places, who open their doors to all these people running away from unnecessary persecution, running away from a new wave of slavery. And we have a group here also in Chicago in support of that. Well, I've housed LGBT immigrants. I live all by myself, so it wasn't something too difficult. But there is a capacity to any living house of number of people you can have there and make sure they are comfortable. And I have friends who have opened their doors as well to support here in Chicago our LGBT immigrants. It is part of what we can do. Before I take my seat, I want us to know one more thing. And it is what my sister emphasized. The world is a global village. What happened to an African LGBT can happen to any of us present here if we venture out of US to all those places. And that is why we cannot but be concerned and be up to really go out and work to pressurize the world to have a real true change of attitude. The new, is it the new governor or the new president of the UN? Is it governor or president, whatever his position is? Whatever he is from Uganda. And this raised alarm in some of the groups I belong to. And I said, well, let us just wait how his presence in the UN as a leader may go on to influence some positive changes in Africa. Kofi Annan was the secretary at one point, and I read a message from him today warning the gentleman from Uganda and warning the world from what may be his hidden agenda. Let us hope United Nations body does not have another hidden agenda, and if they do, that all they want to do is to look for a roadway, maybe by his choice. I tend to look at word positively. Maybe by choosing him, looking for a roadway to the heart of Africa. Finally, no one is free unless he decides to declare his freedom. And that's the message I always give to my African brothers and sisters, particularly those who are back home, and even to those who are here. For those who are here, if God set you free this far, set yourself free and live a happy life. For those back at home, set up a strong community. Internet can help you do that. And we are doing that already in different groups. We call it secret groups. And yet the secret groups meet from time to time to interact with one another. Be source of support and encouragement to each other. Because one particular gate to freedom and self-affirmation in Africa is the ability of personal economic expression, to be able to express yourself economically, not depending on anybody. Work. I don't know how far this will go, but if you hear my voice today, work hard to achieve that economic independence from your mother, from your father, from your uncle, from your sisters. And it will be well for you. Thank you.
Thank you. That was John Adeoye, co-founder of CLASP, and he is housing several folks that have decided to move to the States for asylum. I'm going to invite now Victor Aweke to talk about the experience of how these social constraints and legal constraints are affecting public health, as well as the ability to find safety there in Africa.
You're all welcome. I'm going to start by saying that all people are persons of sacred worth, regardless of your sexual orientation, your economic and health condition. And then I'm going to talk about race, color, regardless of all that. Because I do believe that none of us seated here today made ourselves to who we are. Before birth, we never knew that we're going to be blacks. Neither do we know that we're going to be whites, or the family which we're born into. Such are LGBTI persons that came into the world and then they found themselves who they are. I'm going to give a little story about myself. That's just one out of a whole lot that has happened to me. In 2011, I traveled to Abuja, and then I went to attend a party with a friend in his compound. And then it was night, and so while we're in that party, we're over 15 LGBTI persons in the compound, just a birthday party. And then while we're there, I don't know what happened. Maybe the neighbors alerted the police and said that there are some gay guys having party, but it's in our apartment. But before we know what was happening, the police were around, and then they took about 7 of us. I was included. Other persons tried to escape. And we're like, what is the problem? What did we do? What's the problem? And they said, when you get to the station, you'll know what you did. So everybody was handcuffed, and then they took us into the Black Maria, and we went to the station. On getting to the station, they wouldn't even allow us to say anything. There was no statement. What they did was throw us inside the cell. And when they put us inside the cell, that happened, I think around 11 or so. Before it would get to like 3 hours from when we went into the cell, I fainted because I'm allergic to closed doors. When I know I can't get out, I don't know how, I get tensed, and before you know, if you don't take me out, I might even pass on. So I fainted, and the people in with me, they were shouting. The LGBTI persons, they were shouting. And they now came, and then they released me because I don't know what was happening again. They released me, and they took me to an hospital, a clinic, King's Care in Gariki in Abuja. And then when they got there, they had to handcuff me to the bed. I was unconscious. In fact, I was unconscious for 7 days. And I was there. And then the other people were in the cell. They called their parents. In fact, one of them is still back in Nigeria. I could call names, but just for privacy, reasons for privacy, I wouldn't want to mention names. So I was there in King's Care Hospital. The record is still there. I was there for 7 days, and then I was unconscious, and I was also handcuffed to my bed. And when I woke up, some friends called a lawyer, Barrister Tom Charles, and then he came, and then he tried to free some persons, and at the end of the day, the people were freed. But I could not go home. The police came and removed the handcuffs from my hands. But I could not go home because I had to pay for the hospital bill. And so I had to stay back in the hospital to make sure I paid the bill. And I didn't have money. That is just one out of a lot that has happened. As a child that was growing, I found that I was attracted to a man. I was attracted to a woman, but the level of attraction to a man is more than the way I am attracted to a woman. But I told my mom in one occasion, I said, this is what I feel. And she said I should never talk about it. And I killed it. As in, I tried to abstain and keep it to myself. But I abstained for years, but the feelings didn't go. I tried to hide and do it when she's not there, but the feelings were still there. And in fact, as I speak with you, I have a 4-year-old daughter. And then I finally left the mother, the lady that got pregnant and gave birth with me in 2012 when she discovered I'm also having an affair with guys, and she decided to leave. Well, I can't hold her back. I have to move on. Now, I want to talk about healthcare, all that the LGBTI persons go through. I think in 2010, we started up a HIV positive group for MSMs, men that have sex with men in Abuja. That's what we call MSMs. I was one of the founders of that group, and the group has stood the test of time. It's still on now. This is a group where men that are HIV positive will come and talk about their issues, because every community has peculiar issues that is peculiar to them. And so when we look at the Nigerian setting, and then because there is stigma and discrimination, and then these people cannot come to a doctor and tell a doctor that, sorry, I think I have, if I want to give an instance, I have anal gonorrhea. And the doctor will excuse me, I don't know what you're saying, anal gonorrhea, how did you come about that? And so there are a lot of STIs that MSMs, that LGBTI community members will have, which the doctor that is just a general doctor will not understand how they got it. And if they should go forth and say, this is what I experienced, it will call for stigma and discrimination. The hospital, this staff will alert the other staff and say, please, can you come and hear what this guy is saying? And then from there, they are stigmatized and discriminated against. And most of them, they keep themselves because they don't want to go and be stigmatized. And so at this point, we said we need to look for a way and then talk about things that affect us mostly. And then we formed the support group, and it's been on, and like I said, it has stood the test of time. And then when you talk about HIV, the discrimination and stigma, it's one on its own. And then you're a gay man. So it is like a dual stigma you're carrying. And then your family will not even want to accept you as you are. In fact, there are some LGBTI members that have been thrown out of their houses, and then they've been roaming the streets, and they find like the only home they have is with LGBTI persons. And then because of that, there are some of them that they can't go to school, because if you're thrown out of your parents' house, who will pay for your fees? And then when a child do not have education, I don't know what becomes of the future. And so the LGBTI community, most of them, they can't go to school because they are denied the right to education because of their sexuality, which they never made. And so in the healthcare settings, we try to look at how do we come about this? What do we do? So we try to get programs which are funded by USAID to specially focus on the MAPS. And even at that, we had to call it MAPS, most at-risk persons. The LGBTI programs are in it because we can't come out and say we're having HIV, we're doing HIV prevention services for gay men. They will burn down the building before the next day. So we had to MAPS. And when you talk about MAPS, we'll talk about injecting and non-injecting drug users. They are very comfortable with that. In and out of school youth, they are very okay. And then you talk about commercial sex workers, brothel-based and non-brothel-based, they are very comfortable with that. But when it comes to the LGBT community, we cannot even call the LGBT, we are to MSMs. And people were what is the meaning of MSMs? And so we don't get to explain. If you don't know what MSM is, that means you're not working in that field, and then you don't want to know, as in we don't want to tell you because we're trying to protect the community. But one thing I want to stand there and say I'm looking at the later impact, negative impact of the discrimination and stigma in our society like Nigeria. Because if LGBTI persons are being pushed back from coming out with telling a doctor how they feel and then get healthcare services, they will keep back whatever they have. And then when they keep back what they have, that will not stop the spread of whatever it is. When you talk about gonorrhea, the spread of gonorrhea will continue from one person to another. Like I stood here, I said, I'm bisexual and I also have a child. And so that could be an instance. There are some of them that is not what they want, but they have to be with a woman just to cover up. For those of them that are bisexual, that are attracted to a woman, because you can't be with a woman if you're not attracted to her. So that's one thing. There are some gay people that are never attracted. So for those of us that are bisexual that can do something, they try to cover up with women. And then, like I said in one program that I went to, I said when you are with somebody you like or somebody that likes you on bed and then you want to use a condom, the person will tell you, what is the issue? Why are you bringing condom? I'm the only person that you're seeing and I think you're the only one I'm seeing. Don't you love me enough? And then when this thing starts popping up, you want to protect yourself. You wouldn't want the person to know that you have STI you're hiding. And so you try to let go the condom. But the truth is, nobody can really tell who goes out and who doesn't. You just have to trust just yourself because you don't go everywhere with everybody. And so by the time you have sex with that person unprotected, you don't know what you're passing or what you're getting. And that person takes that same STI out there, and then you don't know who that person is giving. And so the STIs move from one person to another. And the reason why there is so much, when they talk about some persons, they will say in the gay community, they have the HIV prevalence rate in the gay community is high. That is because they have been denied the right to health care. And then that has moved from where, like I had yesterday, when stigma and discrimination moves away from a word and then wears a face. That simply means that you can no longer go to the hospital because you know that you won't get what you're going for. You are going to be discriminated against. You might even be criminalized if they know that you're a gay person. And so they want to stay back in their community, but that does not stop them from having unprotected sex. They do have sex, and sometimes information matters, because these people are not allowed to know what they need to do. How is a condom used? What do you have to check in a condom to know if that condom is really good for use, as in you're supposed to use it, as expired or it's not expired? There are lots of things that you need to know. And then when they are not allowed to know all this, maybe they are using the condom, but they are using it wrongly. And then we'll talk about consistent and correct use of condom. If it is not consistent and it's not correct, then you're not using a condom. And so even when you use that condom, there is bound to be mistakes. And when there are mistakes, the virus can still pass from one person to another. It may not necessarily be HIV, but it could be other STIs. We have syphilis, we have gonorrhea, we have the rest of them that could pass from one person to another. And you will agree with me that when somebody is infected with STIs, it opens, it's like it makes you vulnerable, and then HIV can just set in. So that's what we're saying, that this the LGBTI community should be allowed to the right to healthcare centers. And then in countries like my country, where I came from, Nigeria, I entered the US on the 14th of February, because I was LGBTI community member, and then the community comes to my house, and so my neighbors were like, "You're a gay man. The people that comes to your house, they are peeping at us when we're dating. This one, that one." They bring up different stories, and then they wanted to beat us up. In fact, they even called the police, and then I managed to escape. They caught my friend. And they were looking for me all over the place. In fact, they wanted to go to my office. There are a lot of issues. I was out of my house on the 14th, and I never got back there. The day I went back there, February 9th, I was beaten. The pictures are, I was beaten. They beat me up. They wanted to take me to the police station. And then my lawyers had to come in and pretend as though they were coming from the police and say they were looking for me. That was how I was rescued. And then I made my way to safety. I am just one person in 1,000. While they were beating me, I may not have made it. There are a lot of persons that they've beaten and then they died from there. There are a lot of stories. There are people back there that they don't even know, like in places like Bayelsa State, there are a lot of people that they don't even know what is a condom. They don't even know who to talk to. They are just there. And then these people face a lot of discrimination and stigma. So what my ending part will be, what can we do as individuals? Because I have said to myself that I'm going to be a voice in everywhere I go, everything I do, that I am going to be a voice so that people that will be hearing the sound of my voice, it will be a source of motivation to other people. And then when they know that I actually, as a child, I had the feelings, and then this is me, I grew up to be what I am now, I believe that they will have courage, and then they will have strength to stand in their fears. And then by so doing, I do believe that we will find a way around it. Thank you very much.
We're going to open it up for question and answer now.
Now, speaking as a gay Native American, I can tell you that historically in my Native American culture, we as gay Native Americans and as LGBT two-spirited people, we're called two-spirited, which means that in the ancient definition, being born of a male and female spirit, but the modern definition is we're born with two identities, our Native American race and our gay identity born within us. Now I can basically tell you from our history that we have always been the backbone to our people and been the backbone to our women and the backbone to our men. We took care, we were healers, we were shaman, we took care of our sick, of orphan children and the elders. So what the people, some of the people in Russia and even in the African countries don't realize is that we LGBT people are the backbone to the societies there, to the people there, and whether they know it or not, this is what they're destroying the backbone. And when you don't have a backbone, they may be the body, but we are the backbone. And if you don't have the backbone, to support that body cannot stand or prosper.
Hi, my name's Noel Spain. I'm a out bisexual man here in Chicago and fighting for the LGBT struggle in general and for bisexuals in particular. And the immigrant, sort of the asylum seeker, is a piece of this puzzle I haven't heard much about. And I'm really encouraged to hear what you're doing and providing a home and space for LGBT persons that are coming and looking for home, coming to America. Can you tell me more about what that looks like and where people are finding connections and how sort of the community at large can participate in that effort?
We have different organizations around US providing support to LGBT immigrants from different parts of the world. Here in Chicago, we have CLASP, which is a Chicago area for LGBT asylum seekers support system, which is a kind of fundraiser program. Then we have the Center for Integration and Courageous Living, which is my own little organization aimed at supporting the LGBT community, not just the immigrants, but through the use of social media, by chatting with people, writing rejoinders online, affirming people to just find that courage. That is one thing we're doing. Well, when it comes to the program here in Chicago, we're still in a infantile stage, a baby stage. I have 5 people living with me in the house. CBS came to our house once, and it was, yeah, they saw how the condition of living. But if 5 people, you know, a person, 2 people may live in the house and the house could be a hell. If 5 people live in a house and they are able to understand each other and bear with each other, which is not easy. It's not. I won't, if I tell you everything is rosy and peaceful, I'll be lying. These were different people from different backgrounds. I never knew them before they came. But we are living together, and when we have some whatever problem, we try to, pacify each other after some time, talk about it, and move on. But I have 5 in my house. And what people are trying to do is to expand, especially accommodation. We've thought of renting a place. We've thought of partnering with some other organizations. We're still working on a lot of things. And as we've had people volunteering. Victor stays with Reverend Strait. Charles, he traveled, and that's why he's not here today. I have Titus, who stays with Mark Lovelace. But I have 5 staying with me. And it is because we're still working things out. It would be a great thing if you found somewhere. I live in Riverdale, Illinois, which is south suburb. If you found somewhere not too far from me, we've tried that before, a 3 or 4 bedroom spacious house, and then people will be able to spread out a little. But I'm knowing fully well that I'm not the only organization doing this in US. If we reach our capacity, we can send people to other places. Did I answer your question? I don't know.
Yeah, and how are people finding you? And
social media is part of it. We find people through social media. Some people find us through social media. And some people were referred by people in the LGBT community. It's not, it's, if you don't know people, the whole thing is risky. It is risky. There could be FBI guys coming to leave me in my house, but there's nothing hidden there. So that none of them I knew, at least those who are living with me, I didn't know any of them when I was in Nigeria. And we met online, they met other people online, they were referred, and all those. Thank you.
I have two questions for you all, and anybody can answer. The first is fashion designer Gaultier, who's from France, and Alvarado, who's from Spain. These two gay men from France and Spain, respectively, once said in interviews, "Why are you English and German-speaking gays so militant?" And I think one of the reasons why they would ask that question is that homosexuality was decriminalized in the Napoleonic Code. So a lot of these Romance-speaking countries got rid of sodomy laws in the early 1800s. And so question number one would be, because as far as I know, Nigeria, you're an English-speaking country. Uganda, you're from an English-speaking country. Is homophobia just as bad in the Francophone-speaking countries, or is it, from what you've heard, or is it slightly better? That's one question I have. And then secondly, because I have heard about homophobia in Cameroon, but usually when I hear about the most awful examples of homophobia, they seem to be from the English-speaking countries in Africa. And then secondly, do you all think there is anything that Black American gays can do to help gays in Africa? And I noticed that you cited Coming to America, and part of me wonders if we could send copies of Noah's Ark and Paris is Burning and Tongues Untied to Africa, because from what I hear, a lot of people watch movies over DVDs as opposed to going to a movie theater. If we could somehow bring those things to Africa, would it help, or would people just say, okay, well, in the same way that we think of South Africa as like a white country, those Black American gays are just westernized, whiteified people too, so they're whatever they're talking about or advocating is just white un-African stuff anyway. So if anybody wanted to touch those two questions, that would be great.
What can the African Americans do from here around the DVDs and all that? Because it's so easy when you have some real concrete educational exposure material that has brought liberation in the African American context that works, and you pass that on. Then how it gets to land there is that it's easy to fit into the perception. It's propaganda. It's so easy to be misunderstood. So, if you have tools that work, it's proven, it has liberated people, then the challenge now is, and that is what I mean by we don't have the luxury to not enter the relating. So it will be best not to send the DVDs, but partner with John, for example, and Victor, and go with a delegation with them, do the effort to make the homework of making it as safe as possible to journey there, and then have in a secure setting in Nigeria, have key identified change agents to come and sit around the table and say, how come you're bringing this? It is not you're pushing to say what has worked for me must now work for you. It is just that you're coming with people that can translate, that can say they found it helpful, and they're locals, although they came here for security. So there's a way that we need to package and partner that goes longer, and it's more complex. So, and again, the communication and the relationship It's critical. That's what we have found in our ministry, Inclusive and Affirming Ministries, 20 years down the line. So we're not talking about mass media. It is such a sensitive issue. It can be so easily misunderstood and crushed that you need to do it one step at a time, but that one step can take you further, because when they then have the documentary, the film, they will use it. But then they need to trust how come you're bringing it. And that trust needs to be earned in meeting up. So then it is a bit more cost intensive. It costs you to set up the meetings like here. It costs you the time, the effort, the setting. But the moment you have the people that you trust and they understand where you're coming from and you understand what is their challenge, that they're not just stuck and not wanting to help themselves, that it's just more complicated and more timely, they take it further. It's really, that's how I find it. And for example, I don't know how many of you have seen the movie Prayers for Bobby.
Oh, yes.
No. We found in our work that we have a couple of documentaries that we have created. And by some reason that you won't know, and I would know because you take your own take on what will be helpful, suddenly something like Prayers for Bobby, they keep asking us, bring us the Prayer for Bobby, because something in that movie moves people. And then it's the way, so get them what they are asking.
Okay. You know, to be frank, some things that worked in US may not work in Africa. If it is that easy, I bet you, with the pressure put by different world governments, especially US and Britain and Germany and so on, people will have changed their mind. The government will have changed their mind. One major inroad I have been trying to explore and encouraging people to explore is to really look into the root cause of all this homophobic behavior. Where is it coming from? It is from the way Africa is being Christianized, the way Africa is being religionized. And if I have some American pastors, and one again is coming to my house on Friday, and I'm still going to repeat to him, he goes to Africa regularly. When you go, don't pocket your homosexuality. Talk to the congregation you go and visit there. If our Black American community, if we're able to, if we have convinced congregations that have ministry, because I know a number, I work in a hospital as a chaplain, and I met a number of African American pastors who tell me, I have a ministry in Congo and I'm dancing in Ghana, and I do tell them, hey, that's a good thing. You know what? I'm talking to you and I'm gay and I can't be home. Can you talk to your people there? And it will be another story. If we find an inroad to the hearts of those people, probably they'll be able to help home people back at home. But apart from that, we have some daredevil people, some people who stand their ground like Andy Thea and say, well, you either kill me or we have this change, who are still back there doing the work of supporting the cause of the LGBT. I know groups in Uganda, I know groups in Nigeria. If they raise their needs, there are different ways we can support them. But sending the movies, I bet you, all the movies we mentioned are already there. But a person even stand a chance of being harassed for possessing them. All the same, people still have them on their phone, iPad. Just think of it. It's a global village we are in. But we can support the activists. We can offset cost of lawyers over there. We can give train lawyers over there. Supportive press people over there in different ways through the people who are on the ground.
Sorry, I just want to add something. In addition to what has been said, I feel that because I'm always, when I want to talk, I look at myself and where I came from and how I've been able to make it to this point. And that is, my mom will say education, it's all. And so I'm looking at, if you ask a question, how do we help? I am looking at the LGBTI community members because there are so many community members that they have to, like from one of that was said, one of the words I heard while I was seated is that you need to get freedom by yourself. And so how can an individual get freedom for himself? And that is trying to work towards that. While I was speaking, I talked about education. There are a lot of them that are not going to school. I think as I'm a social worker, so don't mind me if I speak towards that direction. I think that if people have opportunity in trying to get funds, in trying to pay people's fees, people that are at risk, those of them that could not go to school anymore, I think over time, it will make them people. They will become voices in their different families and communities and societies. And when there are so many voices in the community, because Nigeria, speaking from experience, is a country where I know that all that happens doesn't happen that much to people that has the cash, people that went to school, people that has money. And so if you did go to school and then you're working in a good company and you have your apartment fenced around, you only drive into your gate and then you close your gate. And so those set of people, they do have issues most times, but it is like 10 to 90. So I am looking at how can we support those of them that they've not been able to go to school because their parents drove them out, and then they cannot have education, because education is the key to everything. If somebody doesn't go to school back in Africa, then the person cannot even stand here and then talk. It's the little I went to that I'm able to communicate to anybody. I'm able to come this far. So if I were somewhere and I never went to school, I would not have been able to read. I won't be able to write. And then I cannot even, if you're communicating anything to me, I won't get it. So I feel that if there are ways we could support LGBTI persons back home in trying to get them to school. So it will take time. But if they finish their secondary and then university, they become lawyers, they become whatever, when we have so many of them in the community. And because we're in contact with them, we will be, once in a while, having a lot of programs for them. And then they will become voices in their community. And I think from there might be change. Because I'm really looking at Nigeria from the religious angle, where I don't see if Nigeria can ever, from looking at the way they preach the Bible, to stand in the congregation and say, yes, to be gay is not a sin. But I believe that individuals could stand up and say, this is who I am. And then, if you don't want me in your church, you can go with your church. And then by the time people are going out of the churches because that's what they are, I do believe that there will be a way around it.
Thank you. Around the the Francophone and the British, the limited exposure I've had with the Francophone people, I still hear the same message, that they are discriminated against, there's no safe spaces to really journey with sexuality, and that it's hard work. So I don't see in my limited exposure and experience that there's a difference. And I think also, for example, Malawi, which is a British one. A very good positive change happened in Malawi with their first woman president that said openly, I will consider journeying to see if we can decriminalize. But all right, she was now, she's not in power anymore. Just recently in their voting, she didn't make it. But in that sense, it's like even in previously British colonialized countries in Africa, it depends on the leadership. It really is. And in that sense, I just want to also add to what Victor is saying. I think we have no idea how powerful individuals can be. You can have one person that will stand up, like Bishop Christopher Sinyonjo, and the powerful inspiration, life-giving motivation that gives to people, it goes far beyond that. And we have that kind of figure, for instance, in South Africa in Archbishop Desmond Tutu. So it's one person. So now the challenge is for us, will we stand up and become the little Tutus and the little Sinjonjos and not just wait for once in a lifetime that a Mandela will come? Because we have it in us. We are the little Mandelas and the Tutus because here we are, we're standing up for it. So let's continue to journey.
I've had the privilege to talk to a number of Honduran LGBT leaders, and the thing that they have told me over and over again is that one of the single best things that activists in the United States can do to support them is to cut off all U.S. military aid to the security services in Honduras. Over and over again they say that. And yet we look at Africa. President Museveni has done any number of military invasions of Somalia, for example, with active United States support. President Goodluck Jonathan in Nigeria has been very active in Western Europe with Western Africa, with Western European support and presumably U.S. support as well. Given the violence against LGBTs, I have not heard a clear call for the United States to cut off military aid to governments like Uganda and Nigeria. Obviously, there's the Boko Haram angle on that. What are your views on should people in the United States, as part of being in solidarity with LGBTs in Africa and against the violence, should we be calling for U.S. cutoff of aid to those countries? And I might just add parenthetically, we look at what's going on in Iraq right now, which I see as a direct result of U.S. military invasion of the region. So I'd be appreciative of hearing your thoughts on that, please.
Now, just quickly, from my side, I wish it was as clear that we say, call for that aid to be stopped. But now, on the side, those that you want to call to account is not the ones really that's suffering. Now everybody suffers because aid is not going there. No, I hear you. So a part of me would say, for even with military aid, it's maybe easier to say, stop the military aid, but even who gets the protection or who gets the employment and who does it touch, it gets so complicated that again I want to highlight those that are wanting to take that stand. Make sure that you have locals that affirm that it is exactly what we want and that they will make sure that victims are not victimized by best intentions, but you don't understand the context and how complex it actually is on the ground. So that's my only, I wish I was, because I would say, stop it. I mean, for me, I would even say, get all the guns in the world and throw it in the sea. Because it's not helping. No violence is really sorting things. When will we get it?
as Judith said, it's very complicated, especially when it comes to area of security. We know what Nigeria is going through currently with the Boko Haram. And Nigeria originally said, we don't even want support from anybody. But Boko Haram continue to have superior power, overrunning police stations, overrunning military barracks. And they weren't using bows and arrows. Where are those guns coming from? We don't know. But the power that be, world over, those who are watching movement of things from one country to another know. Can we really, face those areas and ask governments of different countries to really crack down on those who are responsible for spread of harmful ammunitions all over? If we say don't support the Nigerian government to rescue 236 kids, girls, we don't even know. According to what I read yesterday, some of them are pregnant, carrying Boko Haram's baby. That was what the ex-president said. And some may never even come home. We don't even know where they are. The whole thing is so complicated. When it comes to giving aid to Africa by US and other countries, it's a little bit complicated in itself. But on a personal note, I've advocated for that before. Cut it. Why? If we go by the years we've been pumping money, maybe US has been pumping money to Africa and other places, we should have seen something substantial on the ground, particularly Nigeria. We have enough resources to be able to give to different parts of Africa without going to the British or coming to America to take the money. Who are the people tapping those resources? And when you give, to whose pocket does the money go? As a priest, I'll give you an example. This made me cry after causing, instead of giving sermon one Sunday when I was in Nigeria. There was a loan, IMF loan, that was given to my home state, the capital of my home state. And this money was meant to drench the dam supplying water to the city, where we had erratic water supply then. If it was drenched, expanded, and used as the way it was planned, it would supply water to a radius of 100 miles. Round it, not just one way. Round it. And those vagabonds in power share the money among themselves. It leaked out. Luckily, we had a Catholic governor then. He brought his entourage to the cathedral, and I couldn't help but to rain curses on him. It was, and what did he say? Why? Nothing. I just cried for nothing, and it's just complicated. But aids to Africa, particularly to Nigeria, cut it.
So thank you all for your participation.